Hi, welcome to the course on how to introduce numeracy by following your child's uniqueness. In maths, since very early ages, such as, again, 2 years old, even earlier, children can certainly learn the sequence of numbers. So they know from 1 to 10, sometimes even 1 to 20. But this is just learning by heart. They don't really understand what does it mean. They know there are 2, they know there are 3, but they don't really understand what 2 or 3 means. So in this case, Montessori used these concrete materials and techniques and teaching so the children can understand abstract concepts through these techniques and concrete materials with their senses. On this respect, Montessori built a progression of activities to help children to understand numbers. So in all learnings, Montessori broke things into simpler steps to facilitate learning and give the right challenge to progress. So all her curriculum is based on these activities that follow these steps. And there are color coding and other kind of coding and other strategies to gradually support children in building knowledge. We will see some of them shortly. So, but we need to understand as well the child's needs and personality when teaching. So the main strategies, as I said, is the sensorial materials to teach concrete first, and then more abstract concepts. Learning to break into several activities with gradual challenge. And then we can start a formal introduction, more or less we do at 3 years old, although age is indicative, as I said, every child is unique, so things can change. So now I'm going to introduce the progression of activities. Before we were talking about the indirect introduction to numeracy. Now we're actually talking how to introduce numbers and symbols and what do they mean. I will explain first the activities with the Montessori materials, so you can understand the aim, but as well what to observe when your child is working with them. And as well, I will give you, I will suggest some homemade alternatives for you to adapt for your child, and you can consider as well, because sometimes Montessori materials can be quite expensive. So the first one is the large number roads. The large number roads is actually consists in 10 wooden rods. They are colored with alternative colors. If you see red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. And the first one is actually 10 centimeters long, and the big one is 1 meter long. So they are quite big kind of tools to use. And the aim is to introduce the child to count up to 10 with fixed quantities and concrete materials. And in this way, they will be scaffolding the child's awareness of the quantitative relationship between numbers, so they can see that, for instance, 2 is more than 1 and 1 is smaller than 3. As well, the awareness of sequence as well of the numbers, so they can see there's like a stair, is a sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Visually, they can see it. And as well is scaffold awareness of the concept of numbers as an aggregate of 1. So they can see that 1, when you move this little piece of rod, and then you put it, for instance, here, they will see just by adding the 1 in each kind of line, you will reach the quantity, the same quantity of the next one. So it gives the idea of this kind of aggregation of 1. This activity needs to be introduced to the child first. And again, here is about working with the senses and concrete materials, as we were saying before, in order to build more difficult and abstract concepts, and the symbols as well. Symbols are more abstract as well. And they will see visually this kind of stair. And the reason why we're working with fixed quantities is because Montessori related to Piaget. Piaget is a famous cognitive theorist that he talks about this concept of conservation. What he says is that children cannot conserve in their mind that things can be the same quantity when they are displayed differently. I explain better in the next slide that I took from Google. So as you can see, conservation concepts, there are three mainly ones. And one is about conservation of liquid quantities. So for instance, if you have, Piaget said that when you have very young children and you have, for instance, two glasses with the same quantity of liquid, in this case, orange juice, and you ask the child, do you see the same quantity of juice in here? They will say yes. And then if you take another glass of a different shape and you just pour the liquid into the other glass, and you ask the child, after the child is looking, so you ask the child, look at what I'm doing, and then you say, do they two glasses have the same quantity of juice? They will say no, because they cannot conserve the idea of the same quantity when displayed differently. So the same happens with conservation of numbers. So here they have like 7 coins, and you will do the same thing. You will ask, you display them in exactly the same way, and then you ask, do you see, are they the same amount? They will say yes, and then you say, look at what I'm doing, and you just move one, distribute them a bit widely, respect it was before, and then you ask again, and you say, are they same quantity? And they will tend to say no. And this is why Montessori used the fixed quantity with a large number of rows. Because what is important is to isolate the most possible things. So the information that the child is getting is just, so it's just one. So it can be easier for the child to acquire that information instead of having too many things that they need to look about. So it's just one information. So in the large number rows, what we need to focus here is, again, the fact to understand that 1 is smaller than 2, is smaller than 3, etc., etc. So before starting, we need to make sure that we have all the things that we need. So in that case, we need a large number of rows on a shelf or standing. Sometimes they're just standing. And a mat can be either a chalk or a masking tape. This depends on the kind of flooring you have as well at home, and if you don't have a mat. So sometimes a masking tape can help as well, because the child can draw, you can do it with the child. So again, the child needs to be independent in this. So you can teach how to take maybe the largest road and then put it on the, oops, sorry. How do you go back? Here. So, and then you put it on the floor, you show how to follow the roads while you place the masking tape, so they know how to work with it, and you will see now why. And again, we have to use the cycle of activity. So we start from the shelf and we ask the child, would you like me to show you this activity? It's called the large number roads. You need to name the activity so then they know what it's called. If the child say no, I don't want to, it's fine. Don't force this. Trust me, the worst thing that can happen is that you work with a child that doesn't want to do it, and then it will be extremely frustrating for both of you. Maybe he will just try to do it to make you happy, but will not really learn anything. So what you need to do is, if they say no, it's fine. You could maybe try another time, or you can say that you want to do it for yourself, and you can start to use it on your own and present it to yourself. And then if the child can become curious, then you can let the child watch. And when it's ready, you can introduce it properly. Or sometimes another strategy could be, if you have other children, maybe work with an older one, or I don't know, a younger, depending on how young it is the child, you can work with the other child. So maybe you can kind of sparkle some kind of curiosity. But again, if it doesn't want to, don't force, please. If he says yes, perfect. So you can ask, where would you like to work? And what do we need to make this, to use this activity? So we need the masking tape, or we need the mat, and we need the roads. And then you start to show the presentation. I took these pictures from Montessori album, who very kindly allowed me to use it for this course. However, I do think they're missing some steps and some things that are important for you to understand when you are teaching and presenting this. So I'm adding more information. So in this case, what is important is that you need to let the child unfold the mat on the floor, or teach how to put the masking tape or to draw with the chalk on the floor. Then you need to tell the child that you will show the activity first. So you need to set the rules first. You need to say, I'm going to show you how to present, how to do this, and then you can do it as long as you want. The important thing is that when you finish, you need to put it back. Do you remember where it goes? You just make sure that you know, and it needs to go in the mat and where to put it back. You start to show the activity, and the first thing you do is show how to carry the rods, because they are quite big, as I said, and they need to understand how to take on responsibility on using it safely. At the setting, we use children of 3 years old. We use glass in everything we use. So the jugs are in glass, the cups are glass, everything is glass. So they can learn as well about risk taking and the importance of understanding how to be safe themselves. So first of all, you take one of these rods and you say, this is the way we need to hold it. So you put it in a vertical way and you hold it with both hands and you say, you need to do it like a soldier, and you walk with that like a soldier, and you say that because we do this, you say, do you know why we walk in that way? Because we need to be safe. We need to make sure that we don't hit anything else or hit other people or even hit ourselves if we're walking and then, I don't know, we trip over and then we can hurt ourselves. So you show the need to do as a soldier, and they have to do one rod at a time. And this actually supports that freedom and need of movement, because they love moving around. So that will help them to move from one side to another. And this kind of activity normally is done on the floor because, as I said, these rods are quite big. But normally you ask the child if they want to work on the floor, on the table, where, in which area, etc. As far as it's safe and it's not on the way. And if it's on the way, you say, do you think if I need to pass through here, do I have enough room to walk around? And see what they say, instead of just saying, oh, I think it's good if we do it on that side. Just let them think for themselves and come up with conclusions and solutions. And sometimes just let them, if they say, yes, it's safe, then they do it, and then they will see that, of course, again, if it's really safe, that it's not really comfortable to work in that way. Then place the rods randomly, as you can see here. I don't know if you can see the mouse. Yes. Place the rods randomly by following the edge of the mat, and they need to always be on the left side, because that's kind of starting to introduce the idea of left to right when reading. In fact, when we support the mathematical mind, as I was talking at the beginning, we're actually already helping them in what will be when they will learn how to write and read. Because writing and reading is everything about sequencing and putting things in a certain way and order and classification. So that's why it's so important to help the mathematical mind first. So they need to be placed on the from the left on the line, and this is to keep the idea of one that is actually smaller than two. If you put one wherever you like, they will not see the one is smaller. So that's why it's important to start from the line of the masking tape at the edge of the mat. So here they have two rules to follow. One is to put it on the edge, and the second one is that each rod needs to start from the red end. So as you can see, they're all red. And you will be, you know better your child. So sometimes it's better to show the whole presentation yourself first, so then the child can try, or you can do the first 3, 4, and then let the child, because sometimes they're very keen, they want to do it themselves. So just do the first 3, 4, and then the child can carry on. And if the child forgets that he needs to do it right first or do it on the line, just remind gently and say, oh, what color do we need to start with? We need to start with red, right? Okay, so we put in red. If you're noticing that you have to remind there's red every time, it means they're not ready yet to put it on the red. So it means that you can, in this case, you have to present it again another day and do it while you're doing the steps. You need maybe to tell out loud, oh, I'm going to now put it from the red, and you put in the red. Oh yeah, I have to remember it needs to start from red. So then they get ready. Maybe the second time and the third time they will get it. And the other thing is put it on the line again. So if again they don't put it on the line, you just go with them and say, oh, we need to put it on the line. Do you remember? And then you try to put it there. And again, if they still don't get it after 2, 3, it means they're not ready. You have to present it maybe again another day. And if they still don't get it, it's fine. It's not that you can or teach anyway the second part and see how it goes, but it means they're not ready. It's fine, accept it. And then you can do it maybe in a few weeks' time. That's not a problem. So if they get in, they do it right, perfect. You can go to the next step. And the next step is actually, oh, I forgot to mention, when you place them randomly on the mat, leave a bit of room on the top. Don't start from the top. So when you will start to build the stairs, you always start from the top. So leave a bit of room here and start to put all the rods just a bit below. Then the second part is that you have to show how you're building these stairs, and you have to show by observing all the rods together. So you will be looking at all these rods and you will be saying, by touching with your hand from the left to the right, the whole length of the rod, and say, oh, let me see, which one is the longest? So you go in and compare them. You see like, oh, I think this is the longest. You touch it all the length and then you take it and put it on the top here at the beginning. Then you take another, you check, you look at the rest and you say, oh, let's see now which one is the biggest now. And then again, you compare between these maybe and these, and you compare with your hands, and then you touch from the left to the right, and then you place it. But this time you place it next to each other, because now there is a connection in terms of meaning between those roads. You do again, maybe 3 or 4, so they can start to see the scale kind of forming, and then they can carry on. It's the same principle. If they put one instead of another one, that's fine. Don't tell them anything in that moment. Take a note in your mind, and you have to present it again another time, and you can say, oh, can I show you how I would do it? And then you can build it all properly, and you show the child, and you say, oh, it looks like a stair, and then you do it. And then they will get it. And again, this is to support self-esteem, because sometimes if they think that you think that they are not able to do it, then most probably they will not want to do it again. And we don't want that. We want to support and nurture that love for learning. Any questions so far? Okay, I carry on. Large number roads, I mean, these are quite expensive. They can cost more than £100. And you can maybe check on eBay or Facebook groups. Sometimes they sell it for less. However, you can make them yourselves, and they can be even less than £10 to make it. I checked. And I found this website that is called Handmade Childhood, where there is this lady who wrote this blog on how to make them, and you can go and look there. And you can actually go even, I don't know, to B&Q and buy these wooden sticks. You will see how long they need to be and how many do you need. And you can even ask gently to the people that they cut wood to cut it for you. Normally they do it, so you don't even have to cut it yourself. And as far as they cut 10 centimeters, and then 20, and then 30, 40, up to 1 meter. And then the only thing you need to do is just to color them. And please don't color with many colors. They need to be 2, because color is so important in learning and isolating, so they can understand what they need to learn is only one thing, not bigger than distracted by all these colors and stuff. Another alternative I found as well on Google, when you just type large number roads Montessori activities, is not exactly the same, but it could be an option if you cannot do the other two. You can build it with Legos or Duplos, and the important thing, maybe you have to use a bit of sellotape or something to keep them together, and explain to the child that they cannot play with those to build stuff. These are just for this activity. If they want to play with Duplos or anything, or Legos, they have the box, dedicated box, whatever it is. And you need to build them starting, remember, from red. So one will be red, and then red and blue, and then red, blue, and red. And I have here some activities, some ideas. There is another one, in case you think, oh, but I still like the idea of these roads, and it's called small number roads. They look more like, it's like a little box like this, and I'm trying to show you if they don't fall. Is like there are all these little rods in here, as you can see, and they're very small. They're not so interesting for that age as it could be for a bit older children. They like the fact that the rods are big. And another thing I wanted to say with the rods as well, let them explore and play with them. Because sometimes they're, just following what you're saying, and then they just want to do, you just leave them and observe them when they're working with an activity. Just say, okay, if you want, you can carry on working with this, and then just leave on the side and look what they're doing. Maybe they will start to build some kind of shape. As far as it's safe, let them do it. Let them explain and build. And we actually do lots of things with these rods. We make like a big maze where they have to walk inside and learn about balance with a bell. I mean, there's lots and lots of activities you can do. But yeah, in case you cannot do that, you can buy these ones. Work only with one set. Here there are two sets, because this you will use it later to introduce, not too much later, a few months later, to introduce additions. So that could be another option. It's called small number roads, Montessori. And they are cheaper as well. Any questions so far? Okay, I'll go ahead. So Sandpaper Numerals. This is the second, the other kind of activity. That is a bit more abstract, because we're talking about numbers, symbols, and the activity needs to be as well introduced to the child while working with the large number roads, because in some way they go together in some way, although large number roads are just a bit before, but they can kind of work together. It consists of a box containing these sandpaper numerals, because they actually, when you touch them, they're actually, you can feel them with your finger. You can feel the shape of the two, and it's like a sandpaper kind of feeling. And they are from 1 to 10. And the aim here is to teach or reinforce the recognition of the written symbols from 1 to 10, and to prepare the child's hand for writing these numerals, because they will start to build in their head the image of the number by feeling it with their senses. We were talking before about the importance of concrete and senses and touching and all the senses actually involved in this. And again, the same principle, you have to use the cycle of activity. You will be asking the child at the shelf if he wants to work with this, or you will go and say, would you like me to introduce you to these sandpaper numerals? And if he says yes, perfect, you take it to the table. In this case, we will be using a technique that is called the 3-period lesson technique. This is a technique that we use a lot in Montessori settings to introduce new words. It's not just numbers, it can be any. When we do continents, we do anything that is new, we use the 3-period lesson. And I'm going to show you as well how to use it, not necessarily so strictly as in this way. So first of all, you need to choose 3 numbers, 2 or 3 numbers, depends on the age. If it's very, very young, maybe you can start with 2 numbers. If it's just a bit older, if it's like 2.5, 3, you can do 3 numbers. And depends as well of the ability. If you like it's too much information, that just do a bit less. Make sure that they don't know the name of the symbol, because they might know 1 is 1. They might know 1, 2, 3, and maybe they don't know 4, 5, 6. So just make sure that they know. So you can take them out and start to say, oh, do you know any of these? Do you know what they are? Their numbers. Oh, do you know any of these numbers? If they don't know them, it's fine. I say, oh, I'm going to teach you some. Do you want me to teach you some? And you can start. So the 3-period lesson technique is divided in 3 stages. The first stage is about introducing the word. An important thing is that the 3 stages not necessarily needs to be introduced the same day or in the same moment, because sometimes children can be good at the first and the second stage, but they're not ready to the third, and we don't want to force it because we don't want them to feel, I don't know, I don't understand it, I'm stupid, I cannot get it. So we just use maybe the first and the second stage. And you, again, you observe and you will see if you have to introduce the third stage. So the first stage is about introducing the word, and it consists in saying, this is. So you take the just one number, needs to be isolated, nothing else to see. In fact, as you can see, the other 2 numbers are upside down. So you take number 1, you put it in front of your child when you're sitting next to him, so he can see. Preferably, if he's right-handed, you sit on the right. So when you move, you don't cover the view of the child while he's looking on your left. So you take with, normally Montessori teaches with 2 fingers, but if it's easy for you, you can do 1, it's fine. So you start by touching feeling the shape of the number, the symbol, and when you finish to do it, you say, this is 3, in this case 1. So this is 1, this is 1, and you repeat it 3, 4 times. And you give it to the child and you say, do you want to trace it? And then we trace it, and then we say, this is 1, 1. Do you want to say 1? This is 1, and you repeat just a few times. So what is important to remember in the first stage? Isolation of the object, so the child cannot see anything else. The only thing you're working on, what in this case is 1, nothing else around, cannot be distracted, it's just 1. Second thing is about feeling the object. That's so important because again, they are building the image of that number in their heads. And then repeating the actions and saying it 3, 4 times. Then you put 1 aside and you take number 2, and then you do exactly the same thing. This is 2. So you trace it, this is 2, you trace it, this is 2, and you give it to the child, and the child does it, this is 2, this is 2. And the same with number 3. Once the child has repeated a few times 1, 2, and 3, you can go to the second stage. The second stage is about familiarizing with the word. Again, you're not asking the child to tell you the name. You are telling the name, still repeating. And in this case, it's more like a game. I make it more like a game as well. So you, in this case now, you will place the 3 numbers in front of the child. So the child will be 1, 2, and 3. You can put them in random places, doesn't matter, but they will see it. And then you can start to say, oh, can you show me 1? Sorry, can you pick up 3? Can you trace 2? Try to ask a few times to trace rather than just pick or show. And in this case, you can do as well, like, oh, can you put 2 on your head? Or you can move them around and say, where is 2, etc., etc. So as far as you repeat and you make it fun, and you repeat a few times, that will be the second part. So they need to distinguish which one is number 1, which is 2, which is 3. So the important again here is to put the 2, 3 numbers displayed together in front of the child, feeling the object again as much as possible, and repeating these actions 3, 4 times. If while you're doing this and you say, oh, where is 2? And he points at 3, you say, where is 1? Maybe he points at 1 or points at 2. Then it's fine, take a note again. And you can just say, maybe do another 2 times, and then you say, oh, today we looked at 1, and you point 1, 2, and 3. That means the child is not ready for the third stage. And that means you have to redo this activity another time because he hasn't got it yet. And in this case, you can go to the next part of the teaching that I'm going to tell you after the third stage. Instead, let's pretend the child actually got it and say, oh, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and he got it all the time. So he now knows. You can go to the third stage. And the third stage is remembering the word, and it will be the child telling you the name, not you. You're not going to repeat anymore. And you're not going even to ask many times. It's just once. You just want to know if the child knows the word or not. So in this case, you will be saying, what is this? What is this? And what is this? Ideally, we normally say, can you trace and tell me the name of this? Can you trace and tell me what is this? Can you trace and tell me what is this? So here important is ask the question only once, because if you ask many times, the child, in this case that you are asking the name, he will say, I told you already. So there's no point, you just ask once, you just want to know if they know. If they get it wrong, again, don't highlight it, perfect. You have to do again the whole 1, 2, 3 stages. And always when you finish, recap what the child learned in the activity. So you will say, okay, so today we look at 1, 2, and 3. We look at these numbers, how they are written, 1, 2, and 3. And then you ask, oh, would you like to still work with this or not? If they want to, perfect. If not, you know where they go, you need to put it away. The kind of technique, this 3-period lesson as well, can also be used, I don't know, when you are outdoors and you want to introduce a new word. And for instance, I don't know, you see a flower, you see a dandelion, and then you start to say, oh, look, a dandelion. Oh, this is a dandelion. Do you want to say dandelion? And they say, oh, would you like to gently touch the dandelion? Oh, do we want to smell this dandelion? Can you see any other dandelion around? And maybe we can count even the petals of the dandelion. Oh, I don't know, though there are quite a lot. Do you want to, and so you ask until the end, maybe you can get to a point that you say, oh, how is this called, this flower? If you see another flower, just to make sure they learn the word. But that could be a way to repeat and repeat so they familiarize with the word, the new word. So with the Sandpaper Numerals as well, we do 2 activities together. So it's not just about doing the 3-period lesson. So we finish the 3-period lesson and then we say, would you like now to try to draw them? So you can create these trays. They can be made with tea bags. So you can just take the content of the tea bags and put it in the tray. And you can put as well some glitter sometimes, or sand. Some people use rice or salt. I don't really prefer salt because it can make your fingers a bit, I don't know, not nice feeling. And depending on the children, sometimes it's not good to have salt available, but depending on the children, as far as you teach them and make them responsible, they really understand and they don't touch it. But yeah, you can even color the sands. Sometimes if we're doing topics about animals or something, we can make the sand green or blue if we're talking about, I don't know, oceans or anything. And in this case, what the child needs to do, oh, another option as well is squishy bags. You can check on the internet. You can, you know, these ones where you just put some gel, color gel inside and then seal it. And then better to work on a base that is quite, there's a contrast of color, like, I don't know, white base and the gel thing is blue, so they can draw with the fingers. Fingers, please, not, I saw some pictures with like cotton buds and stuff. Not necessarily they can be able to hold it correctly. So better with fingers. It's more about memorizing the shape and being able to do it themselves. Normally they love these tea trays. So what we do with the tea tray is first we take the number, just work with one number. So number 1, we just did 3-period lesson with these 3 numbers. Take number 1. 1 is quite easy to draw. So with one finger, they trace 1 and they say 1, 1. So they have another opportunity there to repeat 1. And then you show them on the tea tray how you draw 1 with your finger. And then you can ask the child to draw it. And again, with two is a bit trickier. So don't worry if they don't do it properly, it's fine. Sometimes they just want to explore and they just want to make things and touch it. It's fine. It's their way to learn and enjoy. They will get to do more numbers when they are ready if they don't just want to do the number in that moment. The point is that they need to understand that they need to try to keep the content inside of the tray and not spread it all around. They are responsible for that. And if that happens, because it can happen, especially at the beginning when they're very little, I mean 2.5, 2, then you need to provide them with the tools for them to put everything back. So they need to have like a dustpan and a little brush so they know how to clean it and put it back. And you need to remind them, we need to put it back as it was, and we need to leave everything clean all the time. You can ask them, oh, can you draw a circle? You can even yourself draw things. And then again, and you put it available for them on the shelf. So every time they feel like they will take the tray, show them how to hold it properly so it doesn't fall, and how to take as well the other sandpaper numbers, and they can draw with them. Another thing can be as well with the rainbow, we call it rainbow numbers, where they can either, as a progression of activity, draw the number themselves and then trace it several times, or you can draw the number for them and they can trace it on top. But this after they have tried on the tea tray a few times. So they remember the shape, and they can do chalks of different colors on a black paper and then draw like a rainbow color. If the child doesn't do the number right, I wouldn't suggest to say, oh, that's not right, or, oh, well done, well done. I think both are not really quite good, because if you're saying just simply well done, you're not saying well done for what? If you're saying, if you're praising, they will be more about the praise rather than what they achieved. And it will be more like, and they don't even know exactly what it is that they did right. And maybe, I mean, if it's not even true, I don't think it's a good honest way to, I don't know if honest is the right word, but to encourage them to learn, I mean, it's okay to don't do it right. So normally what I do, I say, oh, that's a good try, and explain more, and explain that the more you practice, the better you get at things. So you say, even me, you know, I didn't know how to do it myself. I had to practice so many times until actually I managed to get it right. So the more we practice, the better we get at things. So, and remind them, if you trace the number first on the sandpaper, then you can remember and you do it as well on the tea tray. And if you want to praise, and that would be nice, as some encouragement, I would say, for instance, oh, I can see that you did a very good curvy line here. That's quite difficult to do. So well done for doing that, or well done for persevering. That means carry on trying. Did you know that persevering means that? So you're encouraging on the effort put to do something and what it is they're doing right. And I think that would be a more useful kind of encouragement. If they did it right, perfect. So you can say, you see, practicing can really help and you can do amazing things. Now, why don't we do the rainbow numbers or something different or something new? Other kind of options, you can buy them anyway on the internet, but you can as well make them yourself. There are lots of websites where you can do that. For instance, here, they actually, what you can do is you buy sandpaper with a very fine grain. So it's good for the feeling, the touching. And then you can even download these kinds of templates and then maybe put it on the opposite side. What you will see, there are lots of websites where they explain how to do it. I put here actually a link to one of them where you can print it and then you can cut the numbers and then glue it to a bit of thicker paper, and there you are. And there you have your sandpaper numbers. Another option that is very cheap actually, and is only like I think £6 on Amazon, is this one. Is this number work book where you have the numbers that you can feel them with your finger. It's not the same feeling as the sandpaper numbers, but you can still feel it. And in this case, I would suggest to cut the pages with a cutter at the edge and have them like loose, so you can work with 1, 2, and anyway, 1 has 1 image at the back, so they will be right, like 2 will be 2 images at the back. Although you're not very interested with the Montessori, you're not much interested on the quantity at the back. You're interested on feeling and from where to start to feel the number. So that could be an interesting, you can cut them and put in a tray, or you can put it again on a tray, but inside the book, and then they can put it back. Any questions so far? I can go ahead. Okay, so once the child more or less is working with the sandpaper numbers, so he's starting to learn the symbols, how to write them, and he's doing the large number roads as well, and he knows how to build the stairs. So when he's able to completely build the stairs, like here in image 2, then you can do as well the 3-period lesson with the concrete materials. So I don't really like the way, again, from the images from the Montessori album, how they look. Normally we don't touch the whole road with the whole hand. We just touch the end of the road. And we say, in this case, you will be isolating the road and say, this is 1. So just put it a bit below compared to the whole stair, and you say, this is 1, this is 1. And then you take number 2. Again, you should isolate it, not like in the picture. So you have to put just number 2 in front of you and put 1 on the side. And then you touch the end, not the whole hand, the end, and say, this is 2. And then you count 1, 2, this is 2. 1, 2, this is 2. And the child again repeat a few times, put it on the side, take number 3, and you again touch the end, this is 3, 1, 2, 3, this is 3. And then you can put them together, kind of 1, 2, 3, in the same way of the stairs. And then you will be doing the second stage saying, can you point at 1? Can you point at 2? Can you point at 3? Blah, blah, blah. And you can do that with all the numbers. But again, 2 or 3 numbers at a time. When they're able to do that, you can start even to match the sandpaper numbers, or you can make little cards with numbers. You can write them, you can buy them, and then they will be first matching the roads with the symbol. So 1 and 1, 2 and 2 in the right order. Or as you remember at the beginning, when they're just placing all the roads randomly, they can start, you can ask them to place them randomly, and then they have to match the number to whatever is the first row they have. So maybe they have number 7 first, and then you put number 7, and then whatever comes on. So once the child has done almost all the sandpaper numbers, or at least is quite familiar with most of the numbers and the symbols, and understands how to work with the large number roads, it means they can be ready for the next activity. And the next activity is called Spindle Box. The Spindle Box is a wooden box with 10 compartments, as you can see here, and has the numbers from 0 to 9 written, so they can see the sequence. They don't have to sequence anything. The sequence is there for them. And there are 45 spindles. Spindles are these kind of wooden kind of sticks. Sticks, wooden sticks. In this case, what the child needs to do, the aim, is to associate the loose quantities, in this case the spindles, with the fixed symbols. So they will know that 1 will be 1 spindle, number 2 is 2 spindles. And as you can see here, the quantities are not fixed anymore, they are loose. And as well to reinforce the concept of 0, because here you can introduce the meaning of 0 and how it looks like if they're not aware yet. And again, you do exactly the same thing as the cycle of activity. You start from the shelf and finish at the shelf, and let them play as long as they want, even if they don't do it right, or they start to build things with the stick the boots, it's fine. As far as it's safe and they put it back again, it's fine. So the presentation. You start by pointing at the first symbol, and the child should know already. So you will be saying, what is this? And they will say 1. Okay, so here we need to put 1 spindle. Do you want to put 1 spindle in number 1? So they will take number and put it, 1 spindle and put it there. And then what is the next number? 2. Okay, do we want to put 2 spindles? So 1 and 2, and so on up to 9. Maybe help them with maybe up to 3, 1, 2, 3, and then see how it goes. One thing that I notice very often, almost every time, they can do it up to 4, 5 when they learn how to match these quantities to the symbols, but they really struggle to do more than 5 or 4. So sometimes that's why these boxes are separated like this, 0 to 4 and 5 to 9. So what I do to help them to do it is that I ask the child to put 1 spindle at a time, but they are counting out loud. So they say 2. So we say 1, and they take the other one, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, because they tend to take a bunch of them, and sometimes, or even say 1, 2, 3, and then actually there are 7. So it's important that even the first time, even if sometimes they just put more, you just say okay, but then in the next number you say, okay, let's count out loud again, 1, and you guide them, 2, 3, 4, and you help them up to 9. And maybe when you do it again the next time, do it with them up to the end, just guiding them until they can do it on their own independently. And again, this is the time you're presenting. Then they will be working on this on their own sometimes. They will just go to the shelf and just think, oh, I want to do this, and they start to do it. And this will help with bigger quantities. So I was missing this anyway. Yeah, number 2, you do the same, and 3 and 4 and 5. When you finish up to number 9, and when it's done, of course, correctly, because you are counting with the child, you should not have any spindles left on the little box. So in that case is where you can introduce number 0. Here you can make the child notice that there is nothing. There's nothing else in the box. You can say, oh, but here we still have another compartment empty. Do you know what symbol is this? If they know and they say 0, you say, yes, it is 0. And what does it mean? What 0 means? If they don't know, you can, or if they try to say something, you just say, interesting observation, but actually 0 means nothing. That's why we're putting nothing in there. Sometimes they will take 1 spindle and put it in there because they need to fill the empty space. And if they put 1, you say, oh, but that's 1. So I think we should write then 1 in there, but that doesn't say 1, that says 0, because 0 means nothing. And it's fine, if they don't get it that time, you can do it again another time. They will get it eventually. And if when you were doing this the first time, although it shouldn't happen because you are guiding them and you are counting with them, but let's pretend that it's happening and they take, in number 6, they put 8 spindles. When you finish, when you get to 9, you will be missing 2. So you will say, oh, but I'm missing 2 now. Why? Maybe we put some extra somewhere else. Let's go and check again. If they say they don't want to check again, it's fine. You say, okay, so we put it away then, okay? And we put it away. And then you do it another time and you check again with them. And again, in that way, you're supporting self-esteem and they look for learning, etc., etc. Here are some examples. You can buy them. Actually, I saw on Amazon, they can be even for £9 or £17. But I think this is fun as well to make it with them. And you can support as well other skills like, I don't know, cutting with scissors and in preparing everything together. You can do, for instance, I don't know, with roll paper. Here you can put all the numbers and then create the compartments in that way. And maybe you can go to the woods and go and collect the sticks, and you need to together find the sticks that are the same width and the same length, more or less. So you can support them to discriminate, because discriminating means in terms of distinguishing the differences helps them to make order, as we were saying, to support the mathematical mind. So you can make them. I actually put some little rows on some of the ones I found on the internet, like for instance, here somebody doing like, this was a very dedicated mom with fabric, and then sewing all the compartments, and then having maybe Chinese chopsticks, I think, to put in there, or like a tray, and you build the compartments, and children can put as well sticks or Chinese sticks. Important thing is that they need to look more or less the same, because we don't want, again, to distract them with lots of things and colors. We just want them to learn to count and match symbol and quantity. I actually, on this, and again, here, very important, the aim of this activity when you create it is to, as I said, associate the loose quantities with the fixed symbols. So the child shouldn't sequence the numbers. So it should be from 1 to 10, you need to put it for them, because the aim is not for them to put them in sequence. That would be too much. It's just about matching the quantity, and they will be always exposed to the sequence while they're doing that. So that's very important. For instance, this activity is not right because the little trays with the numbers are flexible, so you can move them. So that doesn't work. Here on this website that I was talking about before, this Montessori album, at the very bottom of the thing, I did, as you can see here, there are some examples that you can use. And I put as well some of the links here as well at the bottom of the slides, where you can use. When you will have the slides, I will send the slides too. So this is the Spindle Box. Do you have any questions about the Spindle Box?
Hi. Yes.
Yes.
Hi. Would it work the same way to try and do this from numbers from 10 to 20? So would it make sense if they're already quite confident in doing 0 to 10? Would it be okay to do this 10 to 20, for example? Or
we actually, there are other materials to teach teens, so 11, 12, 13, 14, up to 19, and 20, 30, 40, 50, and other alternatives as well. But because I'm going to do a training course on this as well, but it's a bit higher level. So when they know how to work up to 10, then
okay,
there are lots of things that we can teach. So that will be in another course, and I will show it. So if you are interested, then you can follow that one for sure. And it will be free anyway. Okay, yes. But there is actually, because it's not so immediate to understand how teens work and how 10, 20s, etc. work. So there's another activity for that too. Is that okay?
Yes, yes, thank you.
So the last activity I'm going to show now, because our aim with this course is about introducing children to numeracy, and in terms from 0 to 10, is the cards and counters. Cards and counters is a box of cards that you can see from 1 to 10, and then there are 55 counters, normally the same color or the same kind of type. And here the aim is to consolidate the child's knowledge they have gained from the previous activities, like matching quantities to symbols, but as well to enable the child to be able to sequence the numbers in order, and to teach the concept of odd and even once he's able to do that. So in this case, the presentation, again from the same website, Montessori album, the first is, I don't really use a mat to present this, because you can do it on the floor, on the table. But if the child wants to do it on the floor, is his choice, can use a mat and can work on the mat. So he can see, again, the mats are good ways to visually see what is the working area, especially when there are other children in the house. So they know that's my space and you need to respect my space. You don't walk on my space, you don't are around my space, and you need to ask me if you want to join or if you want to play with me. That's important, so they can build respect between them as well when they are working. So here you ask the child to take the little box, the little tray with the numbers and the counters, and then you ask the child to place at the bottom all the cards randomly. They don't have to be in order. Sometimes they just start to put them in order. Perfect. I don't say anything. But I just say, just can you take them out and place them here? And you show where. Can you place them here? In that sense, you need to guide. Otherwise, it will be a mess and you have to move things around. And then you say, can you find, what's the first number? What number do we start with? And they will say 1. So you say, can you put number 1? And you show them on the top. Remember, always left on the top, because that will help them as well with writing and reading. Can you put it here on the top, number 1? And then what comes after 1? And they will say 2. Can you find number 2? They find number 2. You can put either a hand, or that will be helpful if they put physically a hand and put the number after, so they can leave a space. Because sometimes even if you say leave a bit of space, they don't understand how big is this space. So they can just put it next to it. And it will be more difficult later, you will see, when you place all the counters. So you carry on with all of them, and it will be putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 10. And at that point, if the child put them correctly from 1 to 10, perfect. If it didn't put them right, we say, okay, now let's double check if they are correct. And then we start to count. 1, 2, 3. Let's pretend they put 6 instead of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And wait for each number, wait, not just at the 6. 1. Is that 1? Yes. 2. 3, 4. If when you say 6, they still think it's okay, it's fine. 7. No. And sometimes they get it at the end. After you do all the 10, they will say, oh, but that wasn't 6. After. And then they can correct themselves. And that's even better because they saw themselves. Sometimes I help them a bit, especially when they have done this few times and they still don't get it. So I take the Spindle Box, or we have another game, it's like a snake game with all the numbers up to 20. So we say, oh, let's just double check if they are following the same sequence. Let's see. So we start 1. Did you put 1 there? Yes. 2. And then I just leave the child carry on. If the child still doesn't get it, it means that you still need to work again with the Spindle Box. You need to go a bit backwards. They are not ready yet for the cards and counters. But if they got it, perfect. Then it means you can carry on. The next step that you can carry on. Oh, another thing I do as well, sometimes if they don't get it the first time, I say, oh, can I show you how I would do it? But the second time, not the first presentation, another day. I say, can I show you how I do it first? And I put them all in sequence from 1 to 10, and then I count and I say, I'm going to check if I did it, if it's right. And I go and count again, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 10. Yeah, or I go and check with the Spindle Box. So they think, oh, next time I'm going to check on the Spindle Box. So I go and take the Spindle Box and I start to say, 1, 2, 3, oh, okay, now put it away. So you are giving them the tools to think how to get it right as well. So without you telling them. So if they did it, perfect, then you can start to explain how to put the counter. So you say, okay, so what is this? We say this 1, he will say 1. So we need to put 1 counter, and you put 1 counter under the 1. Number 2, when they put 2 counters, you need to explain they need to go like pairs, like together, like couples or partners or something together. So you put 1 and 2. And it's important they are put in this way. So if it's 4, there will be 2 pairs. If it's 6, there will be 3 pairs. And they will look like this at the end, from 1 to 10. If, again, if the child is not putting the right quantities, it's fine. You can guide them a bit, or it means they need to do more practice with the Spindle Box. And the Spindle Box, again, you can, in order to don't be always the same, you build it differently. So they can think, oh, this is exciting. Now I have a wooden six, or oh, I have this thing next time. Or you can make different versions of cards and counters too. So it doesn't become boring or becomes interesting. So if the child can then do from 1 to 10, here you can introduce the concept of odd and even. In this case, again, you have from 1 to 10. After he plays everything, correctly, then you can say, for instance, you can show that some numbers, you can pick number 3, you can pick number 5, and you can show, here they did it with the finger, it's fine too. I think it's quite interesting too for the child. They were sliding the finger from the top, and then there was like something blocking the finger. That's what they say, that there is this little thing blocking, and that means that there's this counter there at the end. And when we find this, it means that that number is called, what numbers we're talking, 5. So in this case, the number is an odd number. So you will be saying, or you can as well say every time that there's a spare, you can even touch the spare one and say, can you see this is spare, this doesn't have a partner. Every time that you have a spare counter, it means that the number is called odd. And then you say, do you want to say odd? And they can say odd. Can you find any other number that has a spare one, like a lonely one? And they will say 3, and they will say 1, and they will say all the other numbers. So to reinforce as well visually the concept of the odds, you can turn the other cards, the even cards, so they will just see 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And then you will do the same with the even numbers. In this case, you can slide the finger as I was saying there, and you say, oh, this is 3. Or you can say, can you see this, our partners and couples? In this case, we are talking about even. So that number is an even number. And again, you can ask, can you find all the other even numbers? 2, 4, 6, etc. Cards and counters can be quite fun to make at home. These on Amazon is super cheap. It's like £4 without the box, or £8 or £10 with the box. But again, you can make it. And I think here is where you can start to use more things that are more interesting for the child. So if the child, like for instance, here is like conkers, going to the forest and taking some conkers, so you can even write the numbers in cards with a pen. Or you can, here, especially girls like this, you can print crowns with the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 10, and they can match jewels at the bottom with shells. We actually wrote on the shell the numbers with that marker 1, 2, 3 up to 10, and then another kind of shell to match the quantities. Remember, you just need 55 of these. You can be doing as well, it can be with any kind of things. It can be with conkers, as I said, glass pebbles as here, wooden snowflakes, pom-poms, anything. And you can display them in a little tray like this. So you put all the numbers, put all the quantities, and maybe when the child is a bit more ahead, you can put as well the little labels for even and odd. So they can put it under each number. So they can visually see, these are all evens and these are odd. Yeah, any questions so far? No? Okay, so as I said before, once the child know how to match correctly quantities and know what does it mean, quantities to the symbols, and can recognize all the symbols from 1 to 10, then we can do all sorts of activities. And we can learn everything. We can introduce, I mean, I work with children that are not even 4 years old, but depends again on on their skills and abilities and how much they're being exposed to, for instance, all this. They are not even 4, and we work with thousands, and we do place values. We work with 1,300 and something, or and we work with all these quantities. We start to do additions, like proper recording additions, and they understand what 1,000 means, or they understand what 3 and 7 means. And I will do this anyway in the next courses as well.